I have an ongoing series in these months that I'm with you that I entitled Take Up Love's Discipline. And that was for me, what we sometimes call note to self. I was noticing that my calendar was getting very full. Now you have my calendar. It's scary, isn't it? And, there's stressful times we live in. And so that was the note that came up. Okay, well, what should I do? Take up love's discipline. Really important at this time. It was just a phrase that came to me. So I've been living with that note to self and with that phrase and contemplating it. What is it to take up the discipline of love? What is love's discipline? It's really a good question, isn't it? What is it? Is it surrender? Is it kindness? Is it compassion? Is it study? Is it contemplation? Is it seva? Is it good works? Is it contentment? Is it faith? Is it renunciation? Is it devotion? What is love's discipline? There's a verse from the Christian Bible, from the New Testament, the book of Revelation, that there are some verses that you hear that just, they're of some Velcro to them. They just stay with you. And this verse was quoted by Swami Sri Yukteswar in his little book, The Holy Science, when it was the book that he was charged to write to show the harmony between the Eastern tradition, Sanatana Dharma, and the eternal way, Vedic teachings, and Christianity. So this was one of the verses that he quotes in there, and it is from the second chapter, and it is the verses 2-4. And so in Revelation, they're really not sure who wrote down Revelation, but it was his revelation of the teachings of the Christ consciousness of Jesus, speaking right to whoever this scribe was. So there's a lot of symbology in Revelation. But in this particular verse, this voice of the Christ consciousness of the Divine One says to him, look, well, he doesn't say it just this way, but look. I'm aware of all of your good works. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of your patience. I'm aware of your ability to look at all of the other disciples and figure out what they're doing wrong. And I'm aware of your tireless devotion and commitment to the path. Yet, there's a problem. There's one thing I have against you. In the midst of all of that, there's one thing I have against you, and that is that you have forgotten your first love. That's a Velcro verse, don't you think? You do all of this, but in the midst of all of that, here's the problem. You have forgotten your first love. So then we have to say, well, geez, if this is a letter to me, what was my first love? So I'm thinking of this, and I'm thinking, Mikey, grade school, and then I'm thinking, well, that's funny because I ended up with him, but parents, grandparents, pet. What was your first love? If you have forgotten your first love, what was your first love? Well, we know it wasn't that boy or girl in grade school, not even the parents or grandparents or the pet. The first love that we have, that we become aware of, is life itself. Love for life itself. The wonder of it all is amazing. You know, here you are. Oh my God, what's that? It's a toe. Let me put it in my mouth and see what it tastes like. It's a hand. What can it do? This wonder, this amazement at life itself. And then this longing, this curiosity. How the heck did I get here? And who are they? I'm not sure I belong here. Do you remember that? And this longing to know all of that. Who am I really? Where did I come from? And where do I belong? And how do I get there? First love, life itself. And I remember as a little girl looking at myself in the mirror and trying to figure out who was looking at me, who it was behind those eyes who could see me. And I just thought, if I could just look long enough and hard enough, I would figure it out. Who was I? I wanted to know, I wanted to reconnect. I wanted to find that sense of belongings. Now, those longings that we have, of course, are the longing for the true self. The longing to know who we are. The longing to know really what God is. How we got here. The mystics, this is a quote from Omid Safi from his book called Radical Love, which is a collection of Islamic mystics, the poems. Beautiful. He says, for the mystics of the path of radical love, ishq, is not a sentiment or an emotion. It is the very overflowing of God onto this realm. And the yogis teach the same thing, that when we say God is love, we mean this absolute reality that has expressed itself as the world. It didn't create the world. That's different. It expressed itself as the world, so that there is no separation. This love is not a sentiment or an emotion. It is the very overflowing of God unto this realm. It is the radical love that erupts out of God, bringing us into being. It is this love that sustains us, and it will be this cosmic current that will carry us back home. So that is how the mystics see it. So I think we're all born mystics, and then maybe later we forget. But for me, that's what I was looking for as a spiritual path. I wanted to find a mystical path because I wanted to know who I was and what God is. So my teacher has written this beautiful little book, this Word Meanings and Philosophical Concepts to Know. Sounds like my teacher, doesn't it? So he has defined mysticism. Number 1, spiritual discipline and meditation practice for the purpose of having conscious communion or experience of God or ultimate reality. Spiritual discipline and meditation practice for the purpose of having conscious communion or experience of God or ultimate reality. 2, belief in the existence of realities beyond intellectual or perceptual apprehension, beyond words and thoughts, that are the basis of being and are accessible by subjective experience, such as intuition or revelation. So this is how Rumi talked about that mystical yearning. This poem, translated by Coleman Barks, is called "Whoever Brought Me Here." All day I think about it, then at night I say it. Where did I come from? And what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere. I'm sure of that. And I intend to end up there. This drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I get back to that place, I'll be completely sober. Meanwhile, I'm like a bird from another continent sitting in this aviary. I'm like a bird from another continent sitting in this aviary. The day is coming when I fly off. But who is it now in my ear who hears my voice? Who says words with my mouth? Who looks out with my eyes? What is the soul? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord, and I can't leave that way. Whatever brought me here will have to take me home. All day I think about it, then at night I say it. Where did I come from? And what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. So here's the teaching of the mystics. It is really love's paradox. This longing that we feel. Can you feel it? Do you relate to this? We wake up enough to feel this longing. So the mystics say this longing that we feel is what we are longing for. What? What? Say what? This longing that we feel is what we are longing for. Why? What kind of an answer is that? Because this longing is its evidence of the connection. Paramahansa Yogananda said, you would not even desire to know God if it were not possible for you. Where does the desire come from? Where does that longing come from? It comes from the connection itself that we have within our own hearts. Now, as far as love's discipline goes, faith is our awareness of that. In this little book, The Holy Science, Swami Sri Yukteswar defined faith as intensification of the heart's natural longing. So sometimes we think of faith, as belief in something. But think of it this way. This longing that you've had all your life to love, be loved, to connect, to belong, to remember. It is the heart's natural longing to be aware of our own essential nature. So he defines faith, Sanskrit word, shraddha, as intensification of the heart's natural longing. So it's not something that we believe, some doctrine that we believe we have faith in because someone said. It is the courage and the willingness to live with that longing of our own hearts. And to be willing to know that as evidence of what we long for. Do you get this? It's a little esoteric, I know. What does it come down to? Trust yourself. Trust the longing of your heart. And know that that is love's discipline. It is already in your own heart. This longing is its own evidence. And so the discipline is being aware of that and cultivating it, intensifying it, turning towards it, having the courage to look there. Now, I'll finish with a little story about our friend, Mullah Nasruddin. Now, I have told you the story many times about Mullah, this wise fool we find in the Sufi tradition. The story where he loses his keys. This is a seems like Mullah is always losing something. This is another story about him losing something, and he's on a train, and the train has started to go, and he's sitting in the compartment, and the conductor comes through where he's collecting the tickets, right? So he comes to Mullah and asks for his ticket, and Mullah looks in his pants pocket, it's not there. Then he looks in his briefcase, it's not there. Looks in his backpack, it's not there. Looks in his suitcase, it's not there. So then he starts to look in the suitcase of the person next to him. It's not there. So the conductor says to him, Mullah, don't worry. He said, I'm sure you have your ticket. He said, look, usually people just place their ticket in that inside breast pocket of their coat. Why don't you look there? And Mullah says, don't even mention that. What if I look there and it's not there? I'll have no hope. I told this story to Amarnath last night. He said, Uma, you read too many cartoons in the New Yorker magazine. They take a lot of thought. I said, yeah, but it's so fun, later on in the day when you get it. So, of course, this one is like that. We have the ticket. But we're afraid to look. We're afraid to trust ourselves, to trust our own longing. That is the most powerful thing we can do. I think of the beautiful poem by another mystic, Kabir, who said, on the way to God, it is the longing, it is the yearning that does all of the work. So let us have the courage to stay in touch with the heart's natural yearning, to be in divine communion, to know the truth of what we are. When we know that truth of what we are, we know the truth of what others are and what this life is. Om Shanti.